Hey everyone, Nate from Navigator Bookkeeping here. I wanted to make a video about how to get maximum forgiveness from the PPP. So many business owners right now are applying for this program. It's a great program because it can be forgiven fully if you use it correctly. But have we thought about how to best document this so we can get maximum forgiveness? Because basically, once these funds have been used and you've gotten them and they've covered your payroll hopefully and all that, you're gonna have to go to your bank or your lender, whoever you applied for this program through. You're gonna say, all right, I'd like to start the forgiveness process. And they're gonna say, where's your proof? And each bank will probably have some different criteria here, but have we thought about how can we best document this? And this time where we're kind of waiting on these PPP applications, I know there's a lot of business owners kind of in limbo right now, waiting to hear from a lender, waiting to hear when these funds are going to come through, what that's going to look like. A great thing we can do during this time is set up a system so that when we get these funds, when they're dispersed to business owners, we have a system ready to document these so that they can be forgiven fully. So I wanted to talk about that and think about a couple quick ways to do that. So first of all, the first thing you need to do is, of course, use these correctly. 75% or more of these funds need to be used on payroll costs. Payroll costs meaning wages, salaries, state taxes, cannot be used on federal taxes, but basically payroll costs. The other 25%, if you so choose, can be used on things like rent and utilities and some interest payments on loans. But really the majority of this needs to be used on payroll. So of course, that's the first step, use this correctly. But the second thought is, how do we best document this? So here's a couple thoughts I have. First of all, I think it's really important that there's a separate checking account where these funds go into. If you have both the PPP and the EIDL, I would say get two separate checking accounts. It's not hard to set them up online these days. So set those up. Even if they're going to charge you a monthly fee, I think it's really worth it if you're going to get these funds forgiven. Why have a separate checking account? Because if you get your funds deposited into that account, or if you transfer them in after you get them, but if you have your funds in that account, you have all of your expenses in that account, it's going to be really easy to go to the bank when all this is over and say, all right, here's my bank statement. Here's everything. I received $20,000. Here's where it started. Here's where it went down to $0. And here's how every single dollar was spent. If you have all of your funds just intermingled with all of your operating and everything in one big checking account, it's going to be really hard to see, okay, here's where the 20,000 went in, but where did it go out and how do we get down to $0 left over? It's going to be really hard to see where all that money is going. So a really easy first step that I think is going to make this process a lot easier is get a separate checking account set up. And that's something you can do now before you even get the funds. And then when the funds come, you can just transfer them into there and be all set to go. Now, if you can't pay payroll and other expenses out of that separate new checking account that you've set up, I'd say still use it, but just transfer over the funds as needed. So if your payroll is going to be $6,732, transfer over $6,732 exactly from your new account to your regular operating account, and that's going to show how those funds are used. I think that's a really key first step to do. Second step, if you're using something like QuickBooks Online, some sort of accounting software, which hopefully you're using some sort of accounting software in general, but you can get something set up called class tracking. What class tracking does is basically you can track income and expenses by class, basically by like a little subset, by a little subcategory to be really specific. And the nice part about this is if you set this up correctly, when you're all done, you've used all these funds, you can just run a report and see everything that was used for those funds. So let me just show you what this looks like. So I'm going to hop over to QuickBooks Online here. This is a sample company. This is not a real company. This is no one's data. But basically to set up classes, the first thing you do is you go to the gear icon, to settings, and then depending on which subscription you have, you're either going to go to account and settings, or it might say company settings for you. But I'm going to go to account and settings. And then under advanced here, there we go. Under advanced, we have categories, track classes. I'm going to press a little pencil. I'm going to turn classes on, and I'm going to say I can do one for each row in a transaction. That means basically if I split a transaction into more than one account, I can assign a different class for each one. So I'm going to save that. And now I'll show you what this looks like. When we go into the banking, it's got to think and add that in it. When we go to the banking field here, we're going to see where these classes show up and how this is going to help you track. So here's some transactions. Let's just say this $1,200 is something for the PPP. What I'm going to do is here's the class icon. This was not here before. This is new. since we just added that, I'm going to add a new class. I'm just going to call it PPP. You can call it whatever you want. And now, whenever I create a transaction that is using my PPP funds, I'm going to add in that class and then add it to my books once I, of course, pick a category and all that. But then that is set under that class. And now, when I go to reports, let's say, it's a month down the road, 2 months down the road, I can actually find a report showing all my profit and loss by class, or I can even look at sales, I can look at purchases, class list. You can create multiple classes. But either way, that's going to be such an easy way to keep track of everything PPP related. Once again, going back to the EIDL, you could even do a certain class for the EIDL, a certain class for the PPP. And I think that's a really easy way to keep track of this in QuickBooks. If you're not sure how to do that, talk to your accountant, talk to your bookkeeper. Hopefully they can help you set that up, and they can create that going forward so that all of your expenses are tracked. Finally, just another optional idea, if you wanted to create a separate expense account just for PPP, I think you could do that as well. You could call it like payroll-PPP or something like that. But that's just another way that you could do that. I don't think that's as important if you're doing the first two. I think you're pretty set. But I think it's really essential that as business owners, when you receive these funds, you are tracking this. If you do not have a plan in place when you get these funds, I think it's going to be too late. So start thinking about this right now, start implementing this right now, talk to your bookkeeper, talk to your accountant, so that when this rolls out, when you get the funds deposited in your account, you already have a game plan and you already have a system and you're all set to go. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. Send me a comment, send me an email, text, whatever. But I'd love to help out in any way possible. But hopefully this is helpful to you in the best way to track these expenses.